Hi, good morning, Nkgabiseng.
Hi, morning.
How are you doing?
I'm okay, thanks. How are you?
All good, not too bad. I just want to make sure that we're recording. There we go.
Okay,
We are recording, so we've got this.
perfect.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks for joining us in this Loeries Creative Hour. I also
Yes, thank you for having me.
no, it's good to be. Well, this is a good excuse for me because one of the things we've been chatting about is since I joined the Loeries, I haven't had a chance to really chat to a lot of people,
Yes,
and and we haven't, and that's the beauty of it, we haven't generally had a chance to really have a proper conversation. I think
that's true, yeah.
we've seen each other like twice and said like hello, and that's about it. So
Mhm.
this is going to be fascinating. I just want to say hello to a few people because we have people joining us from across Africa and the Middle East. So
Amazing.
I can't get through all the names. We have a full house. So I'm just going to randomly choose some names. So forgive me if I don't mention yours. But Alike Opaya, I see you there. Brilliant Cody, Claire Taylor, Grace McMahon, Jenna Barkley, Crystal Feltzman, Lee Desai, Nisal Pillay. We have a full house. There's a
Hello,
lot of names.
everybody.
Hello, everybody. Please, if you want to ask Nkgabiseng any questions, I'm sure a lot of you are very, very used to this panel right now in terms of how it actually works. So please feel free please feel free to use the chat function, and you can. And then tune in.
I think we've lost Pritesh. I don't know if anyone else had trouble hearing him. Um, the sound was pretty bad, but he's coming through. He's coming back. Hello.
There was a moment where you were going to have to do that all by yourself.
I know, I was terrified.
Oh, not as terrified as I was when I lost video. That was pretty scary. So sorry, everyone.
Okay.
I just got this. We're living this crazy world right now where everyone's online
Everyone's home, yeah.
and everyone's home, and you think your area can deal with all of this traffic. At least my
Mm,
area can't. It's struggling right now.
yeah,
So
definitely. I'm also struggling a little bit. Hopefully, we won't have too many technical issues.
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. That's the only one. As I said, a little bit of housekeeping that I wanted to share just before that is this is the Loeries Creative Hour, and one of the key challenges, and one of the reasons this is developed is really from the challenges that we're all experiencing right now.
Mm.
Having to work from home, and having to be creative in a really strange environment. So because we recognize this, and I'm sure most people are aware of this, one of the things that we've done as the Loeries is, we've looked at the challenges that the industry is having, and we've made entries for Loeries 2020 absolutely free. So and I think that's the key messaging, is that this has never happened before. It's something that's obviously stressful for us here at the Loeries, because there was always the opportunity for us to sit back and go, hey, we're not going to hold a Loeries this year, or we're not going to try and unearth some of this amazing creativity across Africa and the Middle East that has taken place from last year and this year. But we thought it was useful for us to just to support the industry, make the entries free. So everyone listening, enter as many as you want. Get in there. Show us your great work. There's no barrier for anyone to enter this year. And hoping to see some amazing work that really, through the process of you entering, what you're actually doing, it's not just entering into an award or an event. That's not what it is. What you really are doing is think of it as putting a brick into building this massive structure that is our industry. And we can
Mm.
only do it if we have a record of all the amazing work that's been done across Africa and the Middle East. So don't forget, go to www.loeries.com and put your entries in there. Perfect. But we're here today. I'm seeing there's just chats coming through. So mind me as I get distracted. Cizakelo says, a fab thing to make entries free. I believe that creativity survives crisis. Absolutely agree. And I think one of
100%.
the other
Yeah.
things,
How's
somebody, that's great.
yeah.
So I have a few questions, and obviously I want to try and answer more, but I want to give the overview that I was able to get. And obviously I was looking at your website and your corporate website, having a look at LinkedIn, look at everywhere. And so this is what I got. I've got that you've got 9 years of advertising experience. You've been a Creative Circle Exco board member, and you're a Loeries committee member. You've judged Pandorings, Creative Circle, Cannes Young Lions, and Nestle Art Project. Your personality traits are that you're the life of a party. You're super chatty. So I'm loving that because the less I speak, the happier I am. And in other words, don't start a topic about kale. You don't start a topic about kale if you're not willing to discuss all the possible kale-related themes in the world. And you love blogging. And your 2020 word is clarity. So
Yeah.
Nkgabiseng Motau, welcome to the Loeries Creative Hour. Thank you for joining us. Tell me more. Doesn't it
Yes,
feel
thank you for
surreal?
having.
Does it feel surreal to have chosen clarity as your word for
I
2020?
know, I know, I know. I mean, I did that at the beginning, pre-pandemic, but I think it's such an important word. You know, the reason we set these annual words is for ourselves to kind of have like an anchor, personal thing that you're working on and always bringing yourself to. So I think clarity is such a big challenge because I didn't know that 2020 would have so much uncertainty. So having chosen a word like that when you need it the most, it's kind of like a little bit of irony. But I think what I've done each day is try and remind myself I am here, like in today, in this situation, and this is what I can control. And like I keep saying those words to myself just to keep myself centered, because very quickly you can look at statistics and how the curve is going and how all our businesses are, doomed, what's going to happen to our country, and it's just too much to take in. Clarity as a word makes me feel like the things that I know for sure are I'm here today, here's what I can control, and here's what I'm going to do for this 24 hours only, you know.
That's useful because that's one of the
Yeah.
things. I think that's one of the things I want to know is because at the start of this lockdown, it was unprecedented. None of us knew how to cope with it. So is that how where you've come to right now? It's a 24-hour at a time game
100%.
instead of what's happening the next week, what's happening the next month.
Yeah, I think nobody in the world could have dreamed up a situation where countries are in lockdown. The grocery store is the most frightening place to go in your neighborhood. There's nothing there's nothing
Yeah.
like being in a situation where you can't picture the next move because you didn't picture yourself here in the first place. So in order to keep my creativity thriving and myself alive, I think I'm just centering myself around 24 hours at a time, because the truth is we don't know. All of us are like at the mercy of those two words, fellow South Africans. And
Yeah, I know.
you know so you make plans, of course, and you do work and you stay optimistic, but when those two words come onto the screen, you can have such like amazing changes. So I think the biggest challenge this year is like working on the self, because everything around us, like whether it's business, our industry, anything else that you thought you could control or influence, it's like kind of been turned belly up, right? So
Yeah.
um, the only thing we can work on is ourselves at the moment.
So is this applying to your business as well? Is Think Africa also now looking and going, let's take it 24 hours at a time, or is the strategy
And
different
I mean,
as a business
absolutely
owner?
100%. Yeah. So we do have our plans that we set out at the beginning of the financial year, like going, what are we going to achieve? What are we looking at doing this year? And the amazing thing is that while those plans can still stand and we can work towards them, pandemic willing, um, the 24-hour cycle is so much more important right now, because clients are getting new information by the day from their businesses. So
Mhm.
you've had a brief for 2 weeks and then the client comes back and says, guys, in light of, you know, when I see those words in an email, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
rebrief. In light of X, can we now rethink the whole situation? So being tense about those changes makes it so hard to work. And I think myself and the rest of the team, I think, have kind of challenged ourselves to be like, you know what, we are in like, you know, 24-hour cycles, this day, this week. And if a client comes back and they've got new information, we take that on board because it's new for today. Otherwise, you lose your mind. You know, you can't actually plan the way that we used to in advertising. And I think it's possible that this is healthy as well. It's a healthy change for our industry, because what we've typically done is go, okay, here are the boxes we're going to take. Here's the idea, let it go off into the world. Now having to be really, really responsive is a huge responsibility. And I think we've all had it on our corporate credentials, the fact that we are nimble and responsive.
Yep. And
And now
innovative. Let's not forget
innovative.
innovative in tough times. These
Yeah.
are tough times.
You know, and we've always told clients, you know, creativity can solve problems of any scale. You know, just give us a chance to think about a problem and we can come out with something. And then this pandemic is kind of like, so do it then. You know. So it's like an interesting daily challenge, definitely.
But I'm sure, despite rising to the challenge, and I'm sure as we have a lot of the attendees on this webinar today must be feeling as well. You're rising to the challenge, but I'm sure at some point, I don't know if you've reached it already, you just feel, let me get back to the office. Let me get back into an environment where I can share space with other creative people and make things happen. Have you reached that point
Yeah.
yet? Or are you still enjoying working from home?
No, like I think, you know, everybody's suffering from fatigue and we're not immune to it as well. You know, I'm at my family home in Pretoria and we have 2 kids under the age of 4 here. Well, my
Yeah.
nephew. And so, like, if I mean, just for context, like trying to come up with a big idea for anything with like 2 little people getting involved all the time is like a difficult challenge. And that's just one thing. You know, the environment of being home is fantastic when you have the option to go out. But, you know, when you're like meant to be there, it kind of feels like it stops feeling like working from home and it starts feeling like you're living at work. So it's like really, really challenging to keep your mental state going because there's no clocking in and clocking out, which does a
Yeah.
great thing for the mind, right?
Yeah.
So I've found it very difficult from that perspective. And like some days I accept that, you know, typically I'd be, you know, go hard or go home. But like some days I'm just like go soft and go home. Like it's okay.
Yeah, can I tell you the weird thing that I'm experiencing right now? It's like tomorrow's a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And without fail, every single weekend, the same thing happens, or a public holiday. I wake up and then I'm stressed about not being on a Zoom call or not being on a call or not doing something. I feel,
Oh
oh, shouldn't
no.
I be doing this? I see my laptop. My laptop gives me anxiety that I'm not on it. It's very different from working on a Word document, or like Excel or something like that. But going,
Right.
I live on Zoom right now. Why am I not on Zoom? I'm so anxious. So I'm not
It
sure
is.
if you're
I wish
experiencing that. I think people are.
I mean, I know the dangers of it and I understand the situation, but like a part of my mind is still like, I want to go out. I don't care what you say, you know, but, and it's just difficult fighting that thing. Like, we're not going out today. We're staying again. We're going to do this again. It's just a very, very difficult thing. If I ever heard like kind of the story of 2020 from someone else or in a sci-fi film, and the biggest challenge for humanity was staying home, I'd have laughed, you know. I'd have been like,
Yeah.
what wimps, you know, what's wrong with staying home? And like now you have to live that situation and it just becomes challenging. And for us, I think one of the things that I think has been like helping us is these status meetings where we're all in video mode. So for the rest of our meetings, sometimes people are just, you know, video off, muted, like just chipping in when they
Yes.
need to, which is fine. But twice a week we have status meetings where we have to see each other, and in the first 30 minutes of the meeting, which is a long time, we just catch up. How are you? What are you doing? How are you feeling? What's bothering you today? What are some new things that you've been considering, you know? And that helps a lot. It certainly helps me because in a way, you can kind of feel super, super isolated from the rest of your world and feel like all the problems are on your shoulders. So hearing what other people are going through in the team and being able to like just, you know, whether you're offering advice or you're just laughing about it and chatting, it helps bring back that element of being at the office and it's Friday. Today is Friday. We would have been having hot wings, I think, which I shouldn't be exposing. But
no, I listen.
you know.
I can I tell you. I'm gonna tell you a funny hot wing story. Just a bit of oversharing is that last weekend I was in a mall and the store was open, so I decided to go out. I stood outside. I went like, "Hey, by the way, guys, would you sell me some stuff? I'll stand here. Can you deliver it outside your door for me?" And I think they thought I was kidding, because yeah, it's like I don't want to go through all the hassle. It's we're so used to instant gratification,
We are, yeah.
and sometimes, you know, it's like when it comes to fast food and you're hungry at that moment, you're going to eat. Don't want to have to go through a process now, ordering,
Yeah.
waiting, and going. I'm standing outside the door, and I had some people there who actually stood outside the door and managed to order through one of the delivery services, and they
Very
went,
funny.
"We're standing outside the door, and we've been waiting here for over 30 minutes, and we can see the food
Wow.
inside. We just can't get it." So anyway,
Terrible.
it's a random little story I thought I'd share. But I mean, I'm trying to understand more about what you personally. You said you're in Pretoria at the moment. Are you from Pretoria?
Mhm.
Where did you grow up? Where are you from?
Oh, okay. So, very long story. Brace yourself. I'm gonna try and like
I have
compress.
time. I'm sure everyone has that.
Um,
Who else do we have? I see, I'm just gonna, we have brilliant Cody who's joined us. There's Dominique.
oh, hey, Cody.
And with apologies, Evan, I'm gonna try your surname. Don't shoot me. So Evan Sotiropoulos.
Ooh.
Sotiropoulos.
I also don't know.
You can send me you can send us all a message in the chat and say terrible, terrible Pritesh if I butchered your surname, Evan, but I
I
tried.
see there's Zwelisha here. Zwelisha, I don't know if you remember, I met you at Loeries like 5 years ago or something. It's quite a nice batch of attendees we've got.
I know there's some good people who are attending right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're telling me about your background. So before I interrupted you rudely, so tell me more about your background, where you grew up, and a little bit of your story.
Okay, so I grew up in Woodbank, which is now known as Emalahleni. It's like a very small mining town, and the like career of choice is engineering because of the mining, of course. So like growing up, I just fully thought that that's what I would do. Like I would just become an engineer and work in the mines, and you know, that would be it. And then I went through school, started to like the creative space a little bit through high school because I then went to an art school in Pretoria, which is called Pro Arte, which I think it opened me up to the creative world as a career choice, which was really good. Through that school, you get multiple disciplines. So you know, I specialized in drama at the time, which is maybe where the chattiness comes from. But you know, you had art, you had dance, you had all of these kind of disciplines, music, etc., which I really loved all of it, right? And I couldn't find a vocation that would allow me to like dabble in all of those things. And then I kind of heard about advertising. I wasn't really clear on what it entailed, but what I did understand about it is I got to make some kind of commercial pursuit, which I really did like. When I was in grade 6, I think, I sold like bandanas at school. So I would watch music videos and I would see what's on trend. And then I would ask my mom to buy it for me from whatever Chinese depot. And then I would resell it in the school. So I always had like trendy things, whether just like bandanas or like those little crochet bracelets, you know. So I would just look, if this is in music videos, people will buy it, which is
Yeah,
just kind of
If it's in popular culture, there's a good chance that
exactly,
they've already done the job for you.
exactly. So, and then I went to Vega. Kind of, they used to have these open days, these showcases that really interested me. I was like, oh, so with advertising, you can do music selection, you can write, you know, you can think about the actors, you can think about the art direction, even though I didn't know it was art direction at the time. So it felt like a great melting pot of the things that I was interested in. And then I thought I would try it out, but I did still like apply apply for the engineering just in case what I was trying to do in advertising wasn't great. Ultimately, Vega got back to me. You had to make a portfolio, which I had to make in 2 days because I didn't know that, you had to have a portfolio, which was crazy. But I think maybe that was my first taste of tight deadlines, the way that they are set up in advertising anyway. And then I then that was my first like kind of move to Joburg, and I was very new to like the big city. I distinctly remember seeing the highway on ramp onto Grayston Drive and thinking, my God, like this is like the scariest thing in the world because it was so large and like cars and so I was very taken aback by the city, but studied through Vega and then started doing internships through Ogilvy, Hunter Scaris, and that's kind of when I got a taste of what it actually is that we do in the industry. So that's my summarized version: small town girl, and then I kind of like stumbled into advertising.
Which will be the book someday. There'll be a book version someday. wait, if you want to read the full story. Claire Taylor was listening to your story and she says, yes, with lots of S's. Drama, storytellers make great marketers. She's a musical theater performer. She says musical theater
amazing.
performer. So thank you for sharing that, Claire.
Thanks, Claire.
So your first job was at Ogilvy, is that right? So was that your first job in marketing?
Yeah, so it was an internship. I'm actually lying. I did my first job in quite an epic scenario, actually. VWV is an experiential agency. At the time, they had the account for the World Cup opening and closing ceremonies. So to stage those two ceremonies. I don't know if you remember with the Beatle and the dancers and all of that. So
wow.
I had an internship there because they had a bursary that they had for children who come from like underprivileged backgrounds who can't afford the fees at institutions like Vega. So they paid for my third year of advertising school, which is fantastic. And then you had to intern there kind of in return, although not really because the value is so different. But the internship like gave me such a great experience because I got to be like on the field during like rehearsals. So I saw like a few international acts like doing dry runs. We were just like so involved. I helped with the graphics that were on the screen. Just like a dream internship really, and like the timing was like crazy. So I learned a lot in a short space of time, and I really did get to like experiential as a discipline as well in our field. So that was good. And then I was at Ogilvy for my first kind of post-college internship. At the time, it was led by Fran Lacken. The creative department was led by Fran Lacken. And she was just so amazing. Like she was so into ideas. And we actually worked on client-facing work as interns, which it was terrifying, but it was like a great, again, like jumping in at the deep end and like, sink or swim kind of a thing.
So who are some of your clients? So at that point, like.
Okay, so we worked on some DSTV channels.
Yeah.
So I remember there was like this DSTV Indian bouquet. So we worked on some of those channels. We worked on some KFC stuff and some Cadbury stuff. So like really awesome clients right at the beginning.
Amazing brands, yeah.
Yeah. And then worked at Ogilvy for a little while before moving to FCB. So like FCB was kind of the first real, we're now working adults in a creative department. So that was interesting as well.
And coming from from an area where you say engineering was the primary route that most people looked at in terms of a career path.
Yeah.
What did your parents think about, or your family in general? What did your family think about you going into advertising? Was this a yay, great choice, or were they looking and going, we don't understand this, why are you going down this path?
Yeah, I mean, I think my family is generally supportive of things that I do. Like once I become determined to do a thing, there's kind of no stopping me anyway. So they were just like, we don't know what it is, but okay. Because we didn't really have an example of someone having had a success in the advertising industry. And I think for like maybe 5 years of my working career, my parents would still say, like, or my grandparents would still say, you're still young enough to go study engineering. um, which I would just, because they just didn't understand what I did. I think it took like a few years of me really getting into it and like showing them the work, showing them awards, trying to like make them understand the process. And then everyone comes around. So the other day, for the first time, I heard my grandma explaining what I do to her friend, and she got it right. So I think finally it's clear.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, like you said, there's no examples, right? There wasn't
No.
anyone in the community as an example to say, hey, look, this is what advertising is like.
Mm.
But that's where you are right now. You're an example to lots of younger people in terms of who might be in school right now. Are you finding that, being somebody who's successful in advertising has resulted in other people coming and going, hey, my kids want to study advertising, or kids coming up to you and going, I want to find out more. Let me try and figure out how to actually get into this part.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the time, the only way I could explain what I wanted to do clearly is I would reference Generations. There was an ad agency on the soapy Generations, which was called New Horizons. And I would say I want to do what they do at New Horizons. And that would kind of like make people, have a better idea of what it is. But I think I do have a lot of people coming up to me going, how is it? How does it turn out? A lot of people asking me, what do people get paid?
Always?
Um,
Always about the...
always. Yeah. And like, is it like a safe career path? Is it like a secure job, So I think in some ways I must be an example. Of course, there's like the kind of legends that we grew up while studying to be in the industry. That'll be my nephew. Sorry, everyone.
That's awesome. You want to introduce your nephew to everyone. That's
He's gone. Like ran off as soon as I mentioned him. But the people that I used to look up to are like kind of the founders of like your Herd Boys, because I felt like, wow, what a feat. First of all, I didn't know like that there was this industry. I didn't know there were Black people in the industry, and I didn't know there were Black people who actually owned and founded and grew an agency to this amazing thing. And I'm actually told, funny enough, I found out the other day through watching a talk with Happy Njingila that the Generations agency was based on Herd Boys, which is quite funny. It's like quite a fun fact for me.
Well, brilliant. Cody is just messaging and saying that he remembers New Horizons. Oh my God. But also says you're a great example to him as well. A great example of
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Cody.
Just trying to understand a bit more of your career, because I think I'm always curious, you've had a nice long career right now. So what are some of the highlights? If we had to go and have a look and someday read your book, what are some of the key highlights that we're going to find over there from this point?
Sure. I mean, I always say like I'm the luckiest woman alive. And I think it's like a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I always find myself in these like unreasonably lucky scenarios. As I said, my first internship is like one of the biggest events South Africa has ever done. And one of the most exciting communications challenges. I find myself in the center of that. That's definitely a highlight. Another one is when I was at Vega, the Nelson Mandela Foundation was preparing to, in partnership with loads of other people, build the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, and they were looking for a brand identity. So they ran a competition. And the idea that I worked on with 4 other people was the winning idea. So as a college student, getting to meet Nelson Mandela to present our work was just like, what kind of like crazy luck is this, and I mean, I know that it's definitely underpinned by like hard work, sleepless nights, blah blah blah, but some of it has nothing to do with anything I actually do, because some of it is just like circumstantial. I happened to be at Vega when the challenge is going. Yes, sure, we did put everything we had into that competition, but the likelihood that that would happen, I found to be like such an interesting stroke of luck. So that's definitely a highlight. I saw the other day, they did kind of like a breakthrough operation for the first time in their oncology department. And the picture that they had in the press story is a child wearing a gown. And it's the print that we designed in college. So every time I drive past there, or I see any news about the Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital, I'm always reminded that we had that amazing opportunity, which led to us meeting Dr. Nelson Mandela as well. And then, sorry, no?
No, sorry, carry on.
And then another highlight, I think we worked on a piece of work for Coca-Cola, and it was meant to flight in South Africa only. It's the work with the names on cans. It was, called Share a Coke with Bobby, where the dog tries to find his name on a can.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, have you seen that one?
I love that. I remember that. That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so myself and Mukundi worked on the ad, and again, like another stroke of luck, that they already had sold an ad. So there was another team who had been briefed on it. We had been working on another job in the agency. We didn't even know there was a Coke job happening. And then at the last minute, the ECD, who then was James Clutie, said, don't you guys want to give this Coca-Cola script a go? Myself and Mukundi. And we were like, hasn't it been sold? The client has already bought a script. And he was like, yeah, I just don't know if it has like the right kind of thing I'm looking for. We can go back to client if you come up with something amazing. So we spent the whole night dreaming up this dog with a can and writing it up. In the morning we went. It initially was a talking dog in the first iteration of the script. And we presented it to the ECD and the CCO, Brett Morris. And they were like, okay, we love the idea. Let's not make the dog talk. But everything else can stay as is. We think it's good enough to go back to client and say, we know we told you, we've presented you the best idea that the agency could come up with, but we have something better. And one of the people on the marketing side was Kaya Zanga. And he was so gracious to kind of give us the opportunity to go at it again. There was also Sharon Keith, and she was just amazing as well, because she supported her team, in an amazing way as a leader. So they basically threw out the other script and took on our script once they had bought and started preparing to get treatment. So again, like amazing luck, underpinned by like willingness to stay up all night and figure out something really great. And then that ad then goes on to be adopted by Coca-Cola as like best practice for launching that campaign. And they flighted it in over 98 countries around the world, including Europe and North America. And I'm sure you'll know, Pratesh, that we usually get tasked to localize work. So having work go overseas and be adapted for their markets, we ended up having to reshoot it like 4 or 5 times with casts from Kazakhstan, from all over the world. And like, it was just such an amazing thing. And the dog we had, it was a famous dog. It was a Hollywood dog.
Which dog was amazing.
Yeah, which was like just crazy. And then the biggest thing that happens on that job is Warren Buffett is speaking at the Coke Summit in Atlanta, which is a massive thing because Coca-Cola is like huge.
Wow. Yeah.
And he just says he wants to show us he wants to show them a piece of work that he thinks is really great. And he shows our ad. And he, so like Warren Buffett then like speaks about our ad at this massive summit, which is like,
that is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's like really the stuff of dreams. And I think finally a highlight is being able to get an agency we dreamed up, out of this need to like have an answer for the status quo, offer a different voice to the industry, and live our dreams out, give ourselves the real challenge of going, if we really do want to do this, how would it be like? And for that thing to be around for 4 years, attracting the kind of creative people and professional people and clients that we could only dream of is a major highlight. We wanted to do it. We thought it was possible, but the reality really has exceeded the way that we had dreamt it up, definitely.
One of the things I heard you mention like a few minutes back as well was in terms of luck and just being at the right place at the right time. And I always go, it's not really luck. I mean, there's a lot of people who would have had exactly the same space, the same opportunity, but you rose ahead of it. And I was chatting to Sohana Gardan about this last week during this Loeries Creative Hour. And I think, own it. You worked for it and you delivered it, and you were there because of the hard work that you did. It's not really luck. It's really just because of hard work and all the effort that's put in. So I'm sure it was, again, as I said, lots of late nights, lots of hours spent working on it. And that's the fruit of all of that work and all the reward. I
That's
got a question. Shalama Zandamela. Okay, so the first part's been answered, but maybe the second part. Can you recall the moment when you knew that branching out to build Think Creative was the right decision?
actually, we had so many moments because Mukondi and I already were speaking about this kind of like 4 years prior to starting, but every time we would think to go, something else would arise and distract us, whether it was like the agency briefing us on a campaign we thought was amazing, so we would go, okay, after this campaign we're gonna go or like, you know, maybe a trip to Cannes at one point. We'd be like, okay, when we get back from Cannes, we're gonna do it. And like it just, we kept pushing it forward. So there were multiple moments. But I think in the end, we were having a conversation and it got very serious. I think it was like late at night with Mukondi. And part of what we discussed there was what is the person that we want to be at the end professionally of our careers, and can we achieve it here? And then when the answer was like, no, not really, then we thought, okay, now's the time, because we're working towards something, we're going to achieve something, but at the end it will be so different from what we originally wanted. So better to go off and work on that. And then I mean, we quit and we realized we don't have any money. So we freelanced for a little while, which helped a lot with I guess meeting other people from other agencies and broadening our experience of the industry and seeing how a number of shops work, to kind of really, really cement the fact that, okay, what we thought was missing really is missing.
And then I guess when you're right, one of the big challenges you have is you go in as an entrepreneur, you decide I'm starting a business, and the agency life is obviously a lot tougher than some other businesses because you need to have this part to client acquisition. So how easy was it finding clients and getting people? Like who's your, like, I don't know this. Who was your first client? Who's the first client that went, you have no clients, you don't have anyone else to show me on your books, but I will be that first client?
Yeah, sometimes, you know, someone told me that like networking peer to peer is like so much better than networking up, because the people above you, they have a set of like norms and problems and things that you can't necessarily solve for at their level. But when you network peer to peer, you can always have a healthy exchange. So one of our first client was Galax Boy, which is a clothing brand, a local clothing brand. And they were like a startup for all intents and purposes at the time. They had opened their first store in Pretoria. Before that, they had just been like kind of selling, you know, straight to consumer, one at a time, out of a boot or shipping or whatever it was. They were like, we really want to formalize this thing. We want it to become an iconic South African fashion brand. How do we make our first advert for web happen? And that was our first opportunity, which is great because unlike being a new agency and being hired, for example, by Coca-Cola, they tell you what to do. You know, they kind of like wag their finger at you and you just do what they say. When you have like a client who's kind of on your level and also trying to find themselves, that becomes a different conversation. And the dynamic is helpful because you can offer a lot more of your creativity to resolve their very real problems. So one of the challenges we had on that campaign was they obviously didn't have a lot of budget. So they didn't have any media budget to flight this thing on web. All the money they had was to make the thing, which is terrible because you don't want to make an amazing thing and have no one see it. But we were thinking about the things that they did have. And the nice thing about like these underground kind of coming up apparel brands is they have very real fans. And typically some of those fans have fans too. So people who were wearing the brand before it was kind of like this commercial entity, or people like Casper Nyovest, aka Deleuze, DJ Cosmo, a lot of guys in like the tech space. And we had noticed that. We're like, well, you have that, and that can give you a lot more eyes. So if we can use those people as the cast instead of casting models, we'll have a lot, you know, a lot more than, you know, we can afford to pay for in eyes online. So the idea was around starting something which we felt again was tapping into what the young people are thinking about at the time. And we had to flight it on June 16th. So we thought it definitely has to be something that applies to the psyche of the youth, or at least like plugs into the zeitgeist. So with that campaign, we had all of these relevant people. We had a topic that we knew was close to young people's heart at the time. And then what we did was we leveraged all those friendships, those partnerships that the designer had to create this campaign that would fly it on their platform as well as the various cast members' platforms. And then it actually went viral. So it helped a lot because we were able to like leverage the might of what we now call influencers in a very informal and authentic way, and it paid off so much. It like trended, magazines covered it kind of organically, which is what you want. So we ultimately got them like a crazy media budget with no actual spend from their side on media. So that was amazing. Yeah, we did a lot of things sort of gung-ho as well, because we didn't pay for any locations. So we were at each location.
And you do what you need to do, and then you get out before somebody tells you to get out, right?
Yeah, you know, when we saw the cops coming, we just like packed up and we ran.
Oh.
We went to the next location.
Yeah.
Just,
I've had to
like,
do that a few times. Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So I know one of the challenges, obviously, when you're starting off an agency or even any business, is that you've got to be so agile. And strangely enough, I mean, maybe it's a two-part question on this. If you're looking now in the challenges of COVID-19, is it taking you back to some of that, or reminding you of some of that agility you had at the beginning? And do you find that you have some advantage over some of the bigger agencies, the relatively larger agencies, because of being able to be that agile right now?
I mean, I should hope so, in terms of having an advantage. Fortunately, our team is still quite small, and I'm sure you will know, but our business model is structured around having a kind of, you know, reimaginable staff component. So we have 10 core people in our business, and then we have this like network of freelancers and permalancers that we use all the time. So when a client briefs in a piece of work, depending on how big that project is or how small it is, we're able to select people to come onto that project. And what that allows us to do is pick the best people for that project, not just who's available at the agency at the time. And it really makes the work feel different, because people get called for the kind of thing they're passionate about. So I think we haven't lost the ability to be agile that we started with, because we're not a big team. We're always scaling up and down for various projects. So the way that we'll approach something, sometimes we'll be able to do it fully in-house. So one of the things we did when we hired the core team is look for people who have multidisciplinary strengths. So if you're an editor, you must kind of always be an animator as well. Also be someone who can like do decent graphic design. Our social media creative, she's a fantastic photographer, actually awarded. She's great at writing digital content, and she's fabulous at curation as well. So it's like you kind of get like a miniature department out of each person on the team. And that's always allowed us to work very differently, from timelines to costs to really the texture and the output of the work as well.
If you have to think about it, and going back to those early days before you actually started, I mean, maybe let's phrase it as a recommendation to anyone. If there's anyone thinking of opening their own agency, knowing everything that you know right now and the pain and the successes from it, would you recommend it, or would you go think about it very hard before doing it?
No, I'm joking. I would recommend it. It's a very rewarding experience. It has its challenges. So I think depending on what your knowledge is of advertising as an industry and how challenging that is, and then overlaying entrepreneurship on that, you kind of need to be really committed to it. There's no half doing. I have other friends who like are entrepreneurs, and they kind of work maybe 3 hours a day, 5 here and there, and then they've got to sort out like some kind of delivery, you know, a logistical matter once a day, and then that's that. It's not that kind of experience. It's like all consuming. and you have to put your everything into every project, because effectively your best kind of marketing is word of mouth. And having a client go to another marketer and say, I worked with these guys, do you want to check them out? This is what they did for me. That's priceless. So it's super demanding. And you have to be thinking about, how do you innovate on the product itself? So how do we innovate on our service? We can see, for example, a small thing we've discovered over time is like clients hate filling out briefs, which like
Everyone
makes
hates paperwork. Yeah.
yeah,
One
which makes
constant, no one likes paperwork.
yeah, and like, how can we make our process innovative to like get everything we need from you, to start the work and allow you to acknowledge the brief that we are agreeing to work on and sign it, without having you sit there and fill out paperwork really badly in any case, because they'll just fill out one word and like move on to the next question. So like being committed to like refining your service and not relying on what the norms are that you've brought from agencies you've worked from before.
Well, one of the challenges I think that a lot of people in the creative industry are experiencing right now is that, you know, a lot of what we do is based on outside stimulus. So we need to explore, like I was having a look at your Instagram profile as an example, and I noticed you started posting some pics from your Zanzibar trip. So I
Yeah.
imagine travel must be something amazing for stimulus right now. But I mean, how are you coping? Like, what are you doing to ensure that you're engaged and getting new ideas and new thinking, and that creative thinking is still as strong as it was pre-lockdown?
Sure, it's like a difficult aspect of lockdown, I think, for myself and like many other creatives, because I definitely do feed from my experiences in the outside world, whether I'm going to someone's exhibition at a gallery, or I'm talking to a friend, or I'm, out watching a movie. Different experiences inform the work that comes out, and like without being able to live those experiences, it becomes a challenge. But I read a quote like years ago that said inspiration is for amateurs, and I like kind of love that idea. Like, professionals just get to it and you become inspired through the difficulty of the process. So hitting a wall on a brainstorm will kind of open up something else for you, where you start to go, oh, maybe I'm approaching this the way that everyone's approached this, which is why I'm running into all of these territories that have been done. What's a different way that I can approach it? And just that process is inspiring in its own, on its own. So I find that like waiting for kind of outside stimulus to inspire me can be very stressful. So I always like find the inspiration in the process. And we've have a lot of life that we've lived. So, reliving those throwbacks of different moments doesn't hurt. So that's also good. But I will admit, it's definitely very challenging not to be able to go, you know what, I'm going to take the afternoon off and go to the botanical gardens or whatever.
And just
Because
get some me time.
yeah.
How about so you're on the Loeries committee.
Yeah.
So firstly, what made you agree? Because I know there's a lot of work. There's meetings at crazy hours of the morning, and most mornings, which until the lockdown, where you had to physically be present. So what made you agree to join the Loeries committee?
The same reason that we kind of started the agency, or part of the reason that we started the agency, was like to lend a different voice to an industry, and like, these kind of panels that don't have that a lot of the time. So having the opportunity to be like a young Black woman on a committee like the Loeries committee is a responsibility I don't take lightly. So I think the sense of agreeing is like, there's this like t-shirt I saw that says, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Like literally none of my ancestors could have imagined,
I want that t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna steal that quote and get somebody to print it on a t-shirt for
Yeah.
me.
And it's exactly that. Like, we get to live the experience that some of our ancestors would have been farm workers, would have been domestic workers, would have been all these things. Just to be invited to a committee where you can offer a voice, for problems that people might not have thought of before, not because of like malicious kind of bias. There's that like category of problems that just don't occur to some people because they've never lived those problems, you know, outside of the world of malice and bias. There's just things that just don't occur to certain people because they're, you know, not in that space. So to be in that room to say, oh, actually, that's a little bit, you know, not inclusive, or that feels like this. Or guys, you know what would be exciting to someone like me, for example, or offering ideas that just come from my background and my lived experience might be relevant to many other people that wouldn't have been represented before. That's obviously not to say I feel like I represent every Black woman out there, because as I often say, like, even in my family, there's so many different Black women. I don't feel like I could represent them, let alone the whole country. But just to have a different voice in that environment is a privilege.
Do you remember your first Loerie Award that you ever attended?
Yes. So in college, actually, back in the good old days, if you had a Loeries entry, they would fly you there. So they would like cover your stay and cover your flight. And this was my first flight ever. So I had never been on a plane before. And I was 20. And then it was my first time in Cape Town as well, obviously, because I'd never flown before. So it was like quite an experience, like on so many different levels. My whole family was excited. Gonna get on a plane, I'm gonna go do this thing. And the awards were just so much larger than life, you know. From having like, I think it was David Hasselhoff who was hosting that year, which was like
Wow.
quite
Okay. So I think I've heard about this. I've heard rumors of this.
yeah. So
Not more for me to learn.
it was like quite an experience, from looking at the Loeries advertising, getting excited, getting our entries in on time, getting on the flight, Cape Town. All of those things were so new. So I remember it distinctly. And the party was amazing, although I remember it very vaguely, which tends to kind of, you know, hint that it
I
was a
heard
good
that's a
party.
norm. Most people, if you ask most people, they'll say, I remember the party very vaguely. It was
Yeah,
there, but it didn't happen.
I was definitely there, but I, you know, yeah.
And the transition from being a student attending your first Loeries to now sitting on the committee, what does that feel like? I mean,
Yeah, it's like
um,
super full circle. I mean, I had no idea who was sitting in these like mysterious rooms making the decisions, you know, even just like the announcements of the judging panel. I remember friends, you know, friends and I at college would go onto the website and look at the names of the judges, or wherever the announcement would be, we would be like, oh my gosh, this person is so awarded. It was kind of like looking up at those people with a lot of like celebrity status. And you know, now sitting on the committee feels like really, really full circle. Definitely don't take that for granted at all.
yeah, and one of the things, you know, we've worked on all together is this the free entries for the industry across Africa and the
Mm.
Middle East, so that we can support our region during this tough time. What are your thoughts on why the support is needed, and the importance of
Yeah,
doing free entries this year?
I mean, I think it's amazing because it's exactly um, really tuned into the tone of what's happening now. A lot of agencies are on the back foot financially, not sure what's going to happen next with clients, with retainers, with projects. And the Loeries has, for me, always been this beacon of like hope for every year. Like, you know, we're going to get to celebrate what's happening creatively. My love for advertising is always reignited over the Loeries weekend, seeing what other people are doing, what's possible, and maybe celebrating what we have gotten to do. So the fact that that hasn't been taken away and is still there, in the face of so many things being taken away, is amazing. And the fact that it's free, I feel like can be actually career changing for certain agencies who have been excluded in the past, because we just can't afford to enter more than one piece, or we can't afford that year to enter at all. So this year presents like a unique opportunity to enter the work that would have otherwise not seen the light of day. So that's fantastic. It kind of feels like it levels out the playing field as well.
There's no excuses. There's no
Yeah,
excuses. Yeah, yeah. It's like
now,
everyone can be
the
part of
work
it.
is going to speak for itself for sure.
Oh, great. I have a comment from Dominique. So Dominique's acknowledging all the hard work and constant grinds that it's taken to get to here. And also that the first Loeries she attended was with David Hasselhoff. So you shared space
Oh, hey.
with lots of people who are here as well. And in terms of just the industry today, I know everyone's living in this bubble right now, this COVID-19 bubble.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the impact and how do we get out this? Like I said, we're pushing our hashtag in our campaign beyond COVID. How do you think we move beyond COVID now?
I mean, I think about that every day, and I don't think I absolutely have the answer about moving beyond COVID. But the thing we're focused on is trying to, with every brief, solve for the brand problem or the product problem, but also the societal problem that that moment presents. So honestly, looking at each challenge as an opportunity to impact the world around us as well, which is unique because clients are more ready now than ever to buy that kind of work. We've always spoken about it and gone, we should be doing higher purpose work, we should be tackling societal issues with brand dollars, but now everybody is on the same page about that. Whatever we can do to like move beyond this moment, clients are willing to do. So we're going to try and bring that into the boardroom each time.
I'm going to take one last question. We're almost done, but I can't leave this question out because it's from Nkgabiseng Motau. But before I get to that, Shalama Zandamela is saying, thanks for hosting the session, Pritesh. Really great listening to Ngabi share her journey.
Thank you,
I agree.
Shalama.
That's amazing. So Nkgabiseng Motau asks, hey Ngabi, what's the most embarrassing ad you've ever done? And how do you avoid doing something? I feel like there's insights here. I don't feel
I feel like it's a personal attack, but I think I have actually, there are a lot of embarrassing ads that I've done. Okay, so I just don't want to give away the brand. Oh, okay, so we did an ad. It was for breakfast from a particular restauranting group, and we wanted to do the ad with a specific song in mind. So the ad was for cheese omelets. So we wanted the song to be omelets, 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 So we wanted that homeless remix. And then we found out, like, through a long process that Paul Simon owns the rights to those songs and you can't talk directly to Black Mambazo, and we couldn't have it effectively. We also wanted Black Mambazo in the commercial. And the client had bought into that. That was fantastic. We hit this brick wall, and then suddenly the song had to change. So now I'm not going to tell you what the song changed to because then you'll recognize it. So
we'll discuss this offline. Let's take that offline. Sorry, everyone.
Okay. So they changed the song, and it became such a cringe. Like, it changed the whole feeling of the commercial. It was just like, it started to feel more like a really badly done promo. And there was no getting off that speed train to Cringeville. It was happening. It was like moving in that direction. And there was nothing we could do. And then at the end of it all, we shot the ad, we produced it, everything happened. We were just like gutted. And then they called us to the agency kind of like quarterly. And you have to showcase all the work you've done in that 3 months. Oh, it was terrible. So we played the ad, and then people were first quiet, and then they packed out laughing. And it was just like so terrible. It was such a terrible experience. So
I need a copy of that.
What I've learned and how to get out of that is, when the first idea doesn't work, don't tweak it. Go to idea 2. Like the tweak.
Ooh, that's good advice. That's very good.
The tweak is where things can fall apart. So don't try to fix it. Go to idea number 2 if you can help it.
And Gabi's saying we have run out of time. I'm so sorry if I'm going to miss out your question and I'm not able to get to it. But maybe some last words, some parting words to everyone across Africa and the Middle East who've joined. Just some words of encouragement in this time.
Well, firstly, thank you guys for coming to this webinar. It really means a lot that people from all around the region have come to join. One thing I wanted to say is someone posted here that it's Brilliant Cody's birthday, so happy birthday, Brilliant Cody. And
Ooh,
then just words of encouragement that we are keeping. I think there's no challenge bigger than a big idea, and we just kind of live by that principle.
Nkgabiseng, thank you so much for your time. If you want to know more, you can obviously follow Nkgabiseng on Instagram. It's at Nkgabi_Motau. And you can find it on LinkedIn and obviously find it more on the Think Africa website. Just so you know, this webinar is going to be available on YouTube in a few days. So if you missed it or if you want to share it with anyone, it's available. And also get your Loeries entries in. It's loeries.com, entry deadline's 15th of June. And if you, get your entries in, and especially for smaller agencies as well. Fantastic opportunity. And if you're free next week we have Pepe Mare and Garrett Leck from Joe Public on between 1 and 2. Yeah, that should be an interesting chat. So please diarize and then look out for the link coming soon. But Nkgabiseng, thank you so much again.
Thank you,
everyone who joined. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And if you need to chat to us, get in touch with us at info@loeries.com. But all the best. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. You too.
Bye.